It was my birthday dinner. My brother's kid humiliated me. He threw my purse into the pool, then shouted words that broke me. The whole family laughed. But that night changed everything. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my year, my birthday dinner. Just one evening where my family could gather, laugh, and maybe, just maybe, forget all the little tensions that always seemed to hang in the air when we were together. I booked a table at a nice restaurant in town, decorated with warm string lights, soft music, and a cozy atmosphere. I even ordered a cake in advance, my favorite, chocolate with raspberries on top. I arrived early, nervous but hopeful. I wanted this night to feel different. For once, I wanted my family to look at me not as the failure or the lonely one, but just as me, as someone worth celebrating. When they all arrived, my mom, dad, my older brother Daniel, his wife Claire, and their 8-year-old son Noah, I felt that rush of excitement. Everyone hugged me, wished me happy birthday, and we settled around the table. For a moment, everything felt normal. The appetizers came, we laughed about little things. Daniel told a story about work, Dad grumbled about traffic, Mom reminded the waiter about her dairy allergy. I tried to soak it in, the rare moment of us all together without sharp edges. Oh, yeah. And then it happened. Noah, my brother's kid, had been fidgeting the whole time, restless like kids often are. He grabbed a breadstick, dipped it in the wrong sauce, made silly faces. I smiled at him, trying to be the fun aunt. But then, right when the main courses were set down, he suddenly shouted across the table, loud enough for everyone in the restaurant to hear, "Dad says you don't deserve love." The words slammed into me like ice water. My fork clattered against the plate. The table went silent. Every eye turned toward me, then toward Daniel. I laughed awkwardly, my face burning. "What did you say, Noah?" Noah, oblivious to the storm he'd just caused, repeated even louder. "Dad says you'll always be alone, that no one wants you." A couple at the next table looked over. The waiter froze mid-step. My mom gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. My dad cleared his throat but didn't say anything. And Daniel? He just sat there, staring at his son, his jaw tight but his eyes cold. He didn't deny it. He didn't laugh it off. He didn't even try to save me from the humiliation. I felt my chest tighten, my throat closing up. I wanted to disappear. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice trembling, "did you really say that?" He shrugged, finally taking a sip of his wine. "Kids overhear things. Don't take it so seriously." The casual cruelty of his tone cut deeper than the words themselves. My own brother, my flesh and blood, was poisoning his son against me. I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. "You tell your son I don't deserve love? You tell him I'll always be alone?" Daniel smirked. "Well, aren't you? 32 years old, still single, still jumping from job to job. Maybe if you got your life together, I wouldn't have to explain to Noah why his aunt is always so lost." His wife Claire shifted uncomfortably, staring down at her plate. Mom whispered, "Daniel, stop." But her voice was weak, shaky, like she was afraid to really confront him. Dad just kept cutting his steak, as if nothing was happening. I couldn't breathe. The restaurant suddenly felt suffocating. The air too heavy, the lights too bright. My own birthday dinner had turned into a public humiliation. I excused myself, rushing to the restroom, tears burning in my eyes. I locked myself in a stall and pressed my hands against my face. My mind was spinning. Why would he say that? Why would he want to destroy me in front of his child? When I finally returned to the table, I forced a smile, determined not to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. But inside, I was breaking. The cake arrived, candles flickering, everyone sang half-heartedly. I blew out the candles, wishing desperately for strength. When the waiter asked if I wanted the first slice, Daniel chuckled. "She probably wants the biggest one. She always takes more than she gives." Noah laughed. "Yeah, Dad says Auntie is greedy." The words hit me like daggers. I couldn't even taste the cake. I left the restaurant that night with a fake smile plastered on my face, hugging everyone goodbye, pretending I was fine. But the second I got into my car, I broke down, sobbing so hard my chest hurt. This wasn't just sibling rivalry, this was hate. The next morning, I woke up with puffy eyes and a pounding headache. I scrolled through my phone. trying to distract myself when a notification popped up. A message from Claire, my sister-in-law. "I'm so sorry about last night. You didn't deserve that." I stared at the screen. Claire had never gone against Daniel before. For her to message me meant something. My fingers shook as I typed back, "Thank you, but why does he hate me so much? Why would he teach Noah those things?" Her reply came minutes later. "It's complicated. Please don't tell Daniel I reached out, but there are things you don't know. Things about money, about family stuff. He feels threatened by you." Threatened by me? The failure, the single one, the lost one. I needed answers. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon. Mom was in the kitchen, folding laundry. Dad sat in the living room watching TV. When I asked them why Daniel treated me this way, they exchanged a glance but said nothing. "Please," I begged, "I need to know." Mom finally sighed, lowering the laundry basket. "Your brother has always been competitive. He thinks you're careless with your life, but at the same time, he knows how smart you are. He knows you could succeed if you tried. That scares him." Scares him? He has a wife, a kid, a career. What do I have? Mom's voice cracked. "You have potential, and sometimes potential threatens people more than success." Her words didn't make sense at the time, but something in her tone made me wonder, what wasn't she telling me? That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed Noah's voice over and over. "Dad says you don't deserve love." I opened my laptop, searching through old family photos, old group messages, anything that could give me a clue. And then I stumbled upon something strange. An email, years old, buried in my archives. It was from Dad to both Daniel and me. The subject line, inheritance planning. I clicked it open. It explained how, after both my parents were gone, the family house and a large sum of money would be split equally between Daniel and me. I had forgotten all about it. But maybe Daniel hadn't. Maybe that was it. Was my brother poisoning everyone against me, painting me as the failure, so that when the time came, I wouldn't stand a chance at claiming what was rightfully mine? I remembered Claire's words. "Things about money. He feels threatened by you." My chest tightened. This wasn't just about humiliation at a birthday dinner. This was bigger. I realized then that Daniel wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. He was preparing to destroy me completely. And worst of all, he was using his own child as a weapon. That night, I made a decision. I would find out the truth, every detail, every secret Daniel had been hiding. And when I uncovered it all, I wouldn't stay silent anymore. If my brother thought he could humiliate me into disappearing, he was wrong. He had started a war. And I was finally ready to fight back. When I left my own birthday dinner in tears, the silence in my car felt louder than the chaos at the table. My brother's laughter, my nephew's cruel words, "Dad says you don't matter," kept replaying in my head like a broken record. I couldn't escape it. It was like every mile I drove away only carved the wound deeper. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed nonstop family messages, half-hearted apologies, some even pretending nothing happened. My mom texted, "You know your brother didn't mean it that way. Don't ruin the family peace over one comment." One comment? No, that dinner was just the explosion of years of being silenced, dismissed, and replaced. I wasn't just the less successful sibling. I had become invisible. At every holiday, my brother's promotions, his new house, his kids' accomplishments, they dominated the conversation. And me? Whenever I tried to share something, someone would glance at their phone or interrupt with, "Oh, wait, did you hear what Josh did?" At my own birthday, my nephew didn't just throw my purse in the pool. He threw in years of suppressed pain, laughter at my expense, and the message my family whispered behind closed doors: I was a failure. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to let this continue. I pulled out an old notebook I used to journal in, flipped to a blank page, and wrote, "What do I want my life to look like without their voices in my head?" For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine. Not what would make Mom proud, not what would keep my brother from mocking me, but me. I wrote until my hand cramped. Dreams I had buried. Starting my own business, traveling alone without feeling guilty, moving out of my hometown where gossip chained me to the past. And with every word, the fog in my head lifted. When silence turns to distance, I stopped replying to the family group chat. At first, they didn't notice. Then Mom called. "Why aren't you answering? We need to talk about Thanksgiving." I swallowed hard. "I don't think I'll come this year." "What? You're overreacting. Family sticks together." "Does it?" I whispered, "because last week no one stuck up for me." There was silence, then her sharp sigh. "You're being dramatic." Click, I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease for a tiny apartment across town, the kind of place my brother would sneer at. But when I unlocked the door, I felt free. No voices mocking me, no kid parroting insults he didn't even understand, just me and the quiet. I pulled my wet purse out of a box, still carrying the smell of chlorine, and instead of crying, I laughed. It was ridiculous, but it also became my symbol. That purse wasn't ruined. I'd cleaned it, dried it, kept it. Like me, damaged, maybe, but not destroyed. One night, my brother showed up at my door. He looked annoyed, like I had inconvenienced him by stepping away. "You're really going to ghost the family over something a kid said?" I stared at him. "No, I stepped away because of what you taught your kid to say." He blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Dad says you don't matter. Those were your words, weren't they?" His silence was my answer. "You didn't just let your kid humiliate me. You gave him the script." He rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, it was a joke." A joke that told me exactly how you see me. For once, I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to understand. I just closed the door. Cutting ties wasn't easy. Birthdays felt lonely. Holidays were quieter. Sometimes I questioned if I made a mistake. But slowly, I realized something. Peace was better than toxic noise. I started freelancing, turning a side skill into steady income. My confidence grew. I traveled alone and posted photos not for validation, but because I wanted to. And then, one day, I got a message from my nephew. "Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was saying that night. Dad told me to say it, but I think you're cool." I stared at the screen, tears welling up. The cycle could stop with him. I replied, "Thank you. Just promise me something. Think for yourself, not for anyone else." A year later, I hosted my own birthday dinner, not with my whole family, just a small group of friends who had become like family. We laughed, shared stories, and for once, I felt celebrated, not tolerated. My brother wasn't there. My parents weren't either, but my nephew sent me a message that night. "Happy birthday, I'm proud of you." And that was enough. That one dinner, the humiliation, the purse sinking to the bottom of the pool, the cruel echo of my brother's words, it broke me. But it also set me free. Sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people you expect to protect you. And sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's survival. Because family isn't just blood, family is who shows up for you. And finally, I learned I was enough to show up for myself.